The last time a storm this big hit the British Isles was nearly 300 years ago, in 1703, when an unusually fierce extratropical cyclone raged over Britain, killing 8,000 people on land and at sea. The October storm of 1987 was of equal indiscriminate severity and caused a transformation to the British landscape not seen since the Blitz. The bespectacled BBC weatherman, Michael Fish, acquired a dubious new celebrity after making his now infamous statement on the lunchtime weather report on Thursday, the 15th of October, saying, "Earlier on today, apparently, a woman rang the BBC and said she heard there was a hurricane on the way. Well, if you're watching, don't worry, there isn't technically." He was right. The 1987 storm was not a hurricane. A hurricane is a defined meteorological feature of clashing temperatures found only in the warm, humid atmosphere of the tropics. This storm developed in the Bay of Biscay and was powerful enough to generate wind speeds that consistently topped 100 miles per hour. October 1987, a man paddles a canoe in Carmarthen following the storms of 1987, the worst in almost 300 years. Image Mirrorpics Emmett's Garden, Kent. In October 1987, image copyright and TVL. Michael Fish gives his famous unstated forecast. Image YouTube. A car is overcome and two men battle against the tide in Knowlton Haven. Image Western Mail Archive. But Fish's casual delivery, and his failure to predict both the storm's savagery and its fatal trajectory across the densely populated southeast of the country, meant that the people and infrastructures of southern Britain were spectacularly unprepared for what they were about to endure. A solid mass of cold air to the west of the British Isles had drifted south towards a zone of high pressure over the European mainland, which was moving north. At the same time, the sultry remains of Hurricane Floyd, high in the jet stream, were chasing east across the Atlantic, 30,000 feet up. Polar air to the north, humid subtropical air to the south, and intensification from west to east, and the atmosphere was primed. A storm was inevitable. In the Bay of Biscay, waves had been like walls of water for days. Off the coast of Spain, west of Finisterre, the Marcus Sturm, an ocean-going tug too far out and moving too slowly to change course, dropped heavily into every shadowed trough, rose vertically to every vertiginous peak. Wire hawsers lay frayed and redundant on deck, the crew sick and exhausted on their bunks. From his wheelhouse, the captain watched as two ships, his unbridled chargers, disappeared into the dark, foaming distance, carried north before the gale like splinters on the gigantic swell. They were lost to the sea, their snapped tow ropes trailing, their engineless shells rolling, pitching and falling sideways into the wind. Humid air rose and turned to rain, leaving a vacuum close to the surface of the earth so deep that cold air immediately rushed to fill it. A car destroyed by a falling chimney after strong gales hit southeast England, causing extensive damage. Image Getty. The aftermath of the Great Storm leaves boats overturned. Image Getty. In Dulwich, a car is crushed by a falling tree. Image Mirrorpic. Storm damage in Henley-on-Thames. Image Reading Post. The earth turned, the winds turned with it, the depression deepened. The winds grew stronger and the storm moved north. Across the Breton Peninsula, from Quimper to Mont Saint-Michel, power lines fell and crops were crushed. Woodlands, enchanted forests, trees in their hundreds of thousands were systematically razed to the ground. At the seaport of Lorient and in the Grey Marina at Cherbourg, 100 meters, p.h. winds lifted sailboats and yachts from their moorings and threw them against harbour walls, as the warrior wind twisted sharply into the English Channel. But, like a necklace around the ragged English coastline, streaks of light cut through the clouds as Trinity House maintained its 500-year promise to shipping and seafarers to keep the nation's aids to navigation ablaze. From whitewashed buildings, the lanterns shone from headlands and islands, from crags, creeks and coves, and from formidable columns of granite that launched like space-bound rockets from wave-washed reefs surrounded by sea. A route master bus drives past a fallen tree jutting out the side off the road. Image Rex. A car covered with fallen scaffolding. Image Rex. A man making a telephone call in a kiosk knocked over by an uprooted tree. Image Rex. A storm-damaged caravan park. Image Rex. On the seafront at Hastings, where for generations fishermen have launched from the beach to drift, trammel and trap for herring, cod and cuttlefish, the sea through the shingle at the drifting shoreline, and fishing families stood in anxious solidarity by their flat-bottomed boats, watching the rising tide ram the foreshore and batter the fractured harbour arm. Off the coast of Dorset, in the early hours of Friday morning, the storm turned and spun capriciously inland, raking the southern half of England in a cruel slant from Weymouth to the Wash. Behind closed doors and drawn curtains in houses across the country and in the capital, people lay awake in their beds listening to the scream of the wind and the pummeling rain as the storm came closer. Shop and car alarms wailed, drains overflowed, street lamps flickered and went out. Extracted from Wind-Blown Landscape, Legacy and Loss. The Great Storm of 1987 by Tamsin Treverton Jones. Available now. Hayter Stoughton.